You want me to put that on my todger?
This One's Wife. The fraud that sucks. There was once an advertisement that told you nothing sucks like an Electrolux. Some people might say that applies to this one's wife in both senses of the word, namely that she's pants, that she's useless. She sucks, man. Or that she can suck a golf ball through 40 feet of hosepipe as a consequence of well-practiced sexual behaviours commensurate with her status as a somatic narcissist. She's often described as a fraud, and that is entirely accurate, because what she portrays is not what she actually is. Yes, she shows herself as the narcissist that she is, time and time again, after all. I have analysed her behaviours thoroughly to demonstrate that to be the case, but she doesn't regard herself as a narcissist. She thinks that she's something else, and often when she talks about, I want people to see the real me, that's the facade that she's talking about. It isn't the real her. She doesn't know what the real her actually is because the narcissism won't allow her to do so. But plenty of other people can see that she sucks and that they see that she's a fraud. They see that she offers very little, that it's all about the spin, that it's all about the smoke and mirrors. They recognise that she's a talent-free zone, devoid of charisma, lacking a sense of humour, lacking any actual business acumen, lacking any endeavour and industrious nature. And this has come to the surface in a manner which once again causes a problem for this one's wife, both in terms of the original comments and the amplification of the same through the media. An article by Martin Robinson, writing in the Daily Mail, explains, "This one's wife is a fraud and, as ever, is all about milking her fame from marrying Prince Harry to sucker people into buying her stuff. Two of North America's leading brand experts have claimed." Well, I should well imagine that you aren't sat there going, gosh, golly gosh, that's huge news to me. Well, butter my crumpet, I never thought that I would hear the day that someone would tell me that this one's wife is a fraud and is suckering people into buying her stuff. Colour me surprised. No, you all know that is the case, but what it is important to note is that more and more people not only recognise this, but more and more people are speaking out about it. Canadian lawyer Philip Miller and California marketing executive Camille Moore, stars of popular The Art of the Brand podcast, believe the launch and concept of her lifestyle business has been one of the worst they have ever seen. So far, so accurate. I love shitting on people who suck. This one's wife sucks as far as I'm concerned, Mr. Miller has said. And he's not mincing his words, is he? It, by reference to As Ever, is run by a confederacy of dunces working on this platform that is just maximising the value from her fame that came from Suits. Well, there's not a lot of fame that comes from that. She wasn't well known. Here's the more important part. And being part of the royal family. And they're just milking that for everything they can. Miller and Moore, who have advised big businesses including Mercedes-Benz, L'Oreal, Olaplex, Dior, Van Cleef and Air Canada, say this one's wife's business has been a royal disaster. Mr. Miller believes that As Ever lacks authenticity because he claims that this one's wife is pretending to be a domestic goddess and most people don't believe it. Well, you can't argue with that proposition. He's entirely correct. She is pretending to be a domestic goddess because we have seen she isn't one. She commits rudimentary mistakes with regard to food hygiene. For instance, not being shown washing her hands, not necessarily wearing gloves, not tying her hair back, tasting stuff and then sticking her fingers back into whatever it is that she's creating. She doesn't actually cook anything. She just rearranges things on charcuterie boards and occasionally tips things into a pan and then moves it around a little bit. We don't actually see her properly making things. We know also, for instance, that when With Love Meghan was shown, Her and Mindy Kaling went outside to have a tea party. Did this one's wife put it all together? No, a minion did. And as a consequence, not only is it the case that she's pretending to be a domestic goddess, and because she's a narcissist, her narcissism tells her that she can do this, and this is effective, and that it's genuine, and that it's authentic, but also she fails to realise that most people don't believe that she is one, because they can see through her lies. Mr. Miller added that the people who have rushed to buy her wine, jam, crepe mix and tea shows just how gullible a lot of consumers actually are. He said, "She's not substantial. I'm agitated by her so much because it is a deliberate misrepresentation of what she is, because she thinks she can pretend to be that while actually being this, and sucker people into buying her stuff, and every step of the way she's failing because it's not legitimate, it's not intelligent, it's not well executed." Well, in actual fact, she doesn't think that she can pretend to do these things. She is that deluded, Mr. Miller. She actually believes that she can do these things. She actually believes that she knows how to use a knife in the kitchen. She actually believes that the creation of a rainbow of fruit is the most amazing thing that has ever occurred in the history of humankind. She believes that she is a cook and a party planner. She believes that she is a craftsperson. She doesn't think to herself, "Oh, I know I'm pretending at all of this." She is deluded, and her narcissism causes this problem for her because it makes her believe that she is this domestic goddess when everybody else, other than the idiot supporters, can see that she's not. It really is a case of the emperor's new clothes. She believes that she's wearing this wonderful clothing, and everybody else can see, no, you're not, you're naked. She's deluded. She thinks she is the things that her narcissism tells her that she is, but unfortunately for her, she's one of those narcissists that doesn't have the supporting talent, and thus she's exposed. He continues by stating there was nothing about her brand that was good from the start to a distinguishing eye. She was a fraud, what I can see from the beginning, who was just using opportunities to advance herself. Her brand wasn't one built on substance, it was based on using people, which of course is the narcissist personified. They're not executing anything well on any show on anything, but it shows how gullible a lot of consumers are. Mr. Miller said that investors, including Netflix, appear to have failed to ask serious questions of this one's wife before the launch. People who consider themselves smart, because nobody ever questions them, are running this business and telling her to use a playbook that works for products where scarcity matters. Confectionery scarcity doesn't matter. He added, there's an egocentric approach to it, that if you achieve some level of celebrity, you think you can build a brand, but that's the start of your brand. You can make short-term money from it, but it's not a long-term strategy. Philip believes that this one's wife has failed to see what she really is, a disruptor rather than a homemaker. He said her brand should be, I'm a disruptor. I go into TV, I make noise, I go into the royal family, I make noise. She should brand herself as a rebel, but she's not consistent with what she is. And that's a fair observation from Mr. Miller. But the point is, although she is a disruptor because of the way she behaves as driven by her narcissism, she doesn't see that she is one because she believes that she's talented and kind and wonderful to be around. She doesn't think of herself as disruptive. Far from it. She thinks of herself as strong and independent, but not a disruptor, because in her world, being disruptive is seen as a bad thing, and she doesn't want to be seen as a bad thing because she is a good thing. He continues by explaining she should be a disruptor and sell products that are not that expensive and that represent disruption, but that audience is not spending a lot of money. Ms. Moore said this one's wife is responsible for really probably having the worst brand execution to date. Ooh, zinger. Adding, she's had zero ownership in this business. It's effectively like she's just labelling her brand. I feel like she's doing such a brutal or good job, depending on how you're looking at it, getting this free PR, and then absolutely shitting the bed. Accordingly, something of a hammering there for this one's wife in relation to her being seen as a fraud that sucks. The article then rehashes information that we already know in respect of her dalliances with the Shop My site, and also talks about reconciliation and rebuilding bridges, yada yada, rhubarb. But here we have two undoubted experts who don't mince their words, and it's all challenge fuel. They're telling us what we already know, but it's useful for it to be articulated by two experts, and in such forthright terms. This, of course, is not something that this one's wife wants to hear. It's not something that her supporters want to hear. But what it is accurate, and demonstrates the disconnect between what this one's wife believes that she is and the reality of what she actually is. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.